for being here today. What we are seeing is the government of Canada itself is spiraling out of control right before our eyes and at the very worst time. Today, mere hours before Trudeau's finance minister was to deliver a fall economic update that was expected to smash through her already massive deficit targets, she announced she no longer has confidence in the Prime Minister. Canadians were already anxious about the reckless $40 billion deficit the government had announced last spring, but today, in mere hours, they were expected to learn that it was much higher than that, threatening our social programs and our fiscal stability right in the middle of a potential trade war. The Prime Minister, with the help and instigation of carbon tax Carney, pushed Ms. Freeland to bring on massive, unsustainable, irresponsible spending increases that blew through her self-imposed guardrail. He thought that he would simply push her through that guardrail and off the cliff so that she, and not he and Mr. Carney, would take the blame for the crisis that he and they caused. To continue the chaos, think of this. The moment the finance minister resigned, the government's published order of precedent meant that François-Philippe Champagne instantaneously became the finance minister. But now he tells us he doesn't have the job and doesn't want the job. So it goes to the next minister who's on the published order of precedent, and that is Randy Boissonnault, more commonly known as the two Randys, the gentleman who had to resign because he falsely claimed he was Indigenous, falsely claimed that there were more than one Randy when it was all him and all in his head, and he is now technically our finance minister as we speak. We don't know for sure, though, if he'll still be finance minister in 3.5 hours when the scheduled fall economic update is expected to land. That update, by the way, is currently covered by a black blanket underneath a table. No one is allowed to look at it, even though journalists and parliamentarians showed up to read it in briefing rooms to this day, earlier today. So here we are. Everything is spiraling out of control. Out of control spending and bureaucracy has doubled housing costs, with 1,400 homeless encampments taking over Ontario alone. Out of control immigration has led to refugee camps opening in suburban Canada. And then we have 500,000 people in the country illegally, according to government estimates. Out of control crime overtakes our once tranquil streets, with gun crime having doubled. Out of control drugs and disorder add to the chaos, with 47,000 of our people dead of overdoses since Trudeau legalized drug laws, stopped enforcing them, and allowed limitless sums of fentanyl ingredients into our country. Out of control inflation has followed out of control money printing, which has sent out of control demand to our food banks, which are running out of food altogether. Out of control spending has doubled our national debt, boosted interest rates, and threatened our social programs. And it's not just Freeland who thinks this Prime Minister is out of control. Now Housing Minister Sean Fraser has resigned in the middle of a housing crisis. The Minister is resigning, the Finance Minister is resigning in the middle of an economic crisis, and a fifth of his Liberal caucus has lost confidence in him. Justin Trudeau has lost control, and yet he clings to power. We cannot accept this kind of chaos, division, weakness, while we're staring down the barrel of a 25% tariff from our biggest trading partner and closest ally, which, by the way, is headed by a newly elected president with a strong and fresh mandate, a man who can spot weakness from a mile away. Ms. Freeland has been Mr. Trudeau's most trusted minister now for a decade. For 9 years, she knows him better than anyone, and she knows that he's out of control. She said this: "Our country faces a grave challenge. The incoming administration in the United States is pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism, including the threat of a 25% tariff. We need to take that threat extremely seriously. That means we have to keep our fiscal firepower dry today, so we have the reserves we may need for a coming tariff war. That means eschewing costly political gimmicks, which we can ill afford, and which makes Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment. I know Canadians would recognize and respect such an approach. They know we are working for them. They know when we are working for them, and they know when we are working for ourselves. Inevitably, our time in government will come to an end. Will come to an end, she said, and I quote. And it is coming to an end, because we simply cannot go on like this. And it is up to Jagmeet Singh now to make that realization. Mr. Trudeau is being held in office by one man, Jagmeet Singh. A fifth of Liberal MPs have written a letter for him to resign. His deputy prime minister has walked out on him. His housing minister has quit. That on top of numerous other female ministers who stormed out after his appalling mistreatment and abuse and dishonesty towards them. 80% of Canadians have lost confidence in this Prime Minister. So why is Jagmeet Singh making the entire country wait for him to get his pension? That is the question today. To patriotic Liberals across the country, my message is this. You supported this government in good faith because you thought it was the right thing for the country. And you are good and decent patriotic people who have been let down by a Prime Minister and his top advisor, Mr. Carney, who have betrayed Ms. Freeland and you. Carney and Trudeau, the backroom boys, have taken the Liberal Party away from anything it used to stand for. What I'm calling for is let's bring home the common sense consensus of Liberals who believed in liberty, Conservatives who believed in conserving it, fiscal responsibility, compassion for our neighbours. These are the shared common values that will bind up our nation's wounds and bring us back together. Now is the time for a carbon tax election to turn the decision away from me or Mr. Trudeau or Mr. Singh or Mr. Carney and put it in the hands of the people. I know that they will make the right decision. Let's bring it home.
Mr. Poilievre, can you clarify, you do not accept the possibility that Mr. Trudeau could resign and there could be a leadership? You think there needs to be an election right now?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because it is not backroom Liberal insiders who get to choose the Canadian Prime Minister, it is the Canadian people. And for Mark Carney to write a fall economic update full of poison pills and then put it on his rival Chrystia Freeland's desk to knock her and Mr. Trudeau out of the game and allow him and appoint himself Prime Minister is about the most undemocratic political maneuver we've ever witnessed in this country's history. The Canadian people deserve to choose who should be their next Prime Minister. Let's put our faith in them.
Is it possible to have a vote on this, though?
That's up to Mr.
Will the
Singh.
election itself need to take place before January the 20th, when the catastrophic 25% tariff is slated to come into effect?
It would be ideal to have the election done before the President takes office or within the first week or two of his mandate, so that Canadians would have a strong Prime Minister with the brains and backbone, the strength and smarts to stand up for Canada, facing down President Trump and our American competitors.
To be clear, do you think there is a process? Is there a process in the House of Commons? We're in a minority government. Do you see a process in which the House could vote no confidence before it rises tomorrow? Is there such a maneuver that you can do?
I think it's really up to Jagmeet Singh.
Freeland resigned hours before tabling the fall economic statement. How should the government now proceed with the Fez? Should it be tabled?
Yes.
Last question.
And maybe the answer is just for them to table the Fez and let's vote up or down on the Fez. It would be a confidence motion. I think the answer is to table the Fez, the fall economic update, and let the House of Commons vote up or down. And if the fall economic update is defeated, then it would be a non-confidence vote and we would proceed to a carbon tax election. Je pense que M. Trudeau devrait déposer la mise à jour économique cet après-midi et permettre un vote ce soir pour permettre la Chambre des communes de montrer si oui ou non on a la confiance ou bien si on va aller en élection pour reprendre le contrôle de notre pays.
Last question. Do you Canadians want their Christmas holiday to be interrupted by a federal election campaign?
I think right now Canadians' Christmas holidays are being interrupted by the NDP Liberal hell they're living under. Lining up 2 million people at food banks, 1,400 homeless encampments, a doubling of gun crime, the worst inflation in 40 years, our 6 consecutive quarters of shrinking per capita GDP, $500 billion of investment leaving for the United States. Parents are tossing and turning at night because we have the most indebted households by far in the G7. That's the real hell that is interrupting people's Christmas spirit right now. And I think the best Christmas present we could give Canadians is to let them choose a new, common sense, conservative government that will bring home Canada's promise, so that anyone from anywhere can do anything, hard work, gets them a powerful paycheck and pension that buys affordable food, home.